What would you do if someone just handed you almost £1,000,000? And I mean, not out of love, but as a calculated weapon designed to just utterly destroy your family.
Oh man, we're so conditioned to view a sudden financial windfall like that as a fairy tale, right? Like the giant check arrives, the confetti falls, and boom, your struggles are over.
Right, exactly.
But today, we're looking at a landscape of immense wealth that functions, well, it doesn't function as a ticket to freedom at all. It's a brilliantly engineered psychological prison.
It really is. And before we get too deep into the architecture of that prison, a very warm welcome to you, our listener, broadcasting from the little station on Commercial Street right here in Atchison, Kansas. Welcome to today's Deep Dive.
Yes, welcome. We're so glad you're here with us.
We are opening up the archives today for a special episode of Under the Hood, exploring a magnificent, largely forgotten 1966 BBC radio Sunday play titled The Brass Farthing.
It's just a beautifully crafted piece of audio history, and it was recently unearthed and preserved by the incredible archivist network at Chesterton Radio, which is just fantastic.
It's a massive win for audio preservation. But before we step into the suffocating drawing rooms of 1960s England, we really must issue a very prominent spoiler warning.
Oh, absolutely. This is crucial.
Yeah, this deep dive assumes you know the story. We will be revealing major plot points, character secrets, and of course, the ultimate, highly ironic ending of the play.
We truly do not want to ruin the experience of the original broadcast for you. So much of the tension relies on the pacing, the gradual unfolding of these family secrets.
Right. So if you haven't heard it yet, do yourself a favor and pause this audio right now. Visit the Chesterton Radio Substack, that's chestertonradio.substack.com-ow, and listen to the complete original 1966 production.
And then come right back here so we can analyze the mechanics of the whole story together.
Exactly. All right, assuming you're all caught up, let's shift our focus into the stifling, claustrophobic domestic setting where our narrative actually begins.
Yeah, we are dropped right into a post-war British home, and it is a place just dripping with middle-class anxiety.
Dripping with it. And we meet our protagonist, Catherine Riddle. Now, she is a 46-year-old spinster, and I'm using that specific loaded term intentionally because, well, the 1960s society she inhabits has entirely defined her by her unmarried status.
Right. It's diminished her completely. She's lived this cloistered, suffocating life. She's basically forced into the role of unpaid servant to her demanding, very wealthy, and honestly, remarkably cruel father.
James Augustus Riddle.
James Augustus, yes.
Yeah.
The playwright, Rupert Croft Cook, he doesn't merely tell us that James Augustus is a difficult man. He forces the listener to endure his tyranny.
Oh, it's excruciating.
It really is. The opening scene is a masterclass in toxic family dynamics. I mean, by the time the 1960s rolled around, that archetype of the tyrannical Victorian patriarch was supposed to be a relic of the past, right?
Right, dismantled by the social mobility after 2 world wars.
Exactly. Yet here is James Augustus, ruling his domestic fiefdom through sheer psychological brutality. And, of course, the ever-present threat of his checkbook.
That checkbook is his real weapon. I mean, the incident with the soup perfectly captures his brand of cruelty.
Oh, the bisque.
The bisque. He is complaining bitterly about the food, but we learn there's a cook named Emily who apparently makes an, quote, exquisite bisque.
Right, but the problem is Emily has just spat squarely in the face of the maid.
Yes, spat in her face, causing the maid to resign on the spot in tears. And Catherine is desperately trying to explain to her father that they absolutely must terminate Emily's employment because, this behavior is horrific.
It creates an unlivable environment.
Totally unlivable. But observe how the father maneuvers in this conversation. It's wild.
It's chilling, really. He tells Catherine she must be stark, raving mad to suggest getting rid of Emily. His justification strips away any pretense of human decency. It's entirely transactional.
Right.
He states plainly, if she can make soup like this, I don't care if she swims in drink.
It's unbelievable. He just waves away a physical assault on a working-class maid by claiming Emily is just, quote, temperamental like all artists.
Right, prioritizing his own palate over his daughter's sanity and the basic physical safety of his household staff.
And he actually calls Catherine a nincompoop for waving a wine bottle around while she's trying to make her point. He just wields his status to completely isolate her.
He does. And we learn that Catherine's sisters, Maud and Eleanor, they're married and living comfortably. Yet the father coldly points out that neither of them would take Catherine's place for even a fortnight.
Not even 2 weeks, so she could have a holiday.
Exactly. He has deliberately cultivated an environment where Catherine is trapped, with no allies, entirely dependent on him.
And he weaponizes that isolation beautifully. I mean, terribly, but beautifully from a narrative standpoint. During this very argument, he drops a really chilling bit of foreshadowing.
Oh, about the sisters.
Yeah. He tells Catherine regarding Maud and Eleanor, they'll regret it. One day they'll have cause to regret their selfishness.
He is already orchestrating his final posthumous act of violence against the family structure right there.
Which brings us to the inevitable reading of the will. James Augustus dies. And suddenly, the sisters, Maud and Eleanor, along with their respective husbands, descend upon the house like vultures.
Vultures who have learned to use salad forks, basically.
Huh. Yes, exactly. And the husbands are fascinating studies in post-war male inadequacy. You have Gordon, a struggling doctor who bleeds resentment about his lack of funds.
And Herbert, this suffocatingly pompous solicitor.
Right. And the way this quartet performs grief is genuinely revolting to listen to.
Their mourning is an utterly hollow pantomime. The script transitions them so quickly from dabbing their eyes and lamenting poor Papa to immediately calculating how they can extract whatever pitiful annuity he might have left Catherine.
Right. They just assume it's going to be peanuts.
They operate on the absolute certainty that she will inherit a pittance. Before the will is even read, they're divvying up her future.
Oh, yeah. Calculating how to absorb her into their own households as unpaid domestic labor, like to help with parish work or supervise mothers' meetings.
They view her not as a grieving sister, but as free inventory.
Free inventory. That is perfectly put. Looking at Maud and Eleanor, I kept thinking of the evil stepsisters from Cinderella, but, stripped of the cartoonish elements and dressed in this stifling mid-century middle-class respectability.
Yeah, they don't wear garish ball gowns. They wield teacups and sherry glasses.
Exactly. One of them actually asks for a, quote, weenie glass of sherry, mere seconds after calling her recently deceased father a greedy old miser.
The hypocrisy is staggering.
It really is. And then the solicitor, Mr. Spohr, finally reads the document.
And the tectonic plates of the narrative just completely shift in this scene.
Mm.
The will is a masterpiece of targeted insult.
It's so petty.
So petty. James Augustus leaves £1,000 to Maud, £1,000 to Eleanor, and crucially, £1,000 to Emily the cook.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
He mathematically equates his two married, status-obsessed daughters with the hired help. It is a brutal, calculated degradation.
And then the bombshell. He leaves the entire residue of the estate to Catherine, quote, to be hers absolutely.
And the family is just stunned. They demand to know the value of this residue, and Mr. Spohr reveals it is £800,000.
Which, in post-war Britain, is an unfathomable sum. It's essentially £1 million. But let's look at the father's motive here. Why does he do this? He called Catherine a nincompoop? He didn't respect her.
Not at all.
So is there any reading of this where he was genuinely grateful for her years of sacrifice? Or is this purely a sadistic manipulation from beyond the grave to sow absolute chaos among his daughters?
I think any interpretation relying on sudden paternal gratitude ignores the evidence of his character, honestly. This is pure, distilled spite.
Yeah, it makes sense.
He despised the transparent greed of Maud, Eleanor, and their husbands. He knew precisely how much they salivated over his wealth. By bypassing them and giving the fortune to the one daughter they collectively pity and look down upon.
It's brilliant in a twisted way.
It guarantees a lifetime of agonizing resentment for the Mary sisters, while simultaneously putting a massive target on Catherine's back. He is controlling all of them from the grave by turning the inheritance into a grenade and just pulling the pin.
And the family's reaction confirms his theory instantly. I mean, the veneer of respectability evaporates into pure venom.
Oh, immediately.
Gordon, the doctor, without missing a single beat, claims Catherine has been scheming for this outcome her entire life.
Which is absurd.
Completely absurd. And then he casually floats the idea of having the will declared legally invalid due to insanity.
Right.
He is perfectly willing to declare his father-in-law legally insane and publicly drag his family's name through the mud simply because the money didn't land in his bank account.
It's a stunning sequence. It exposes the absolute moral bankruptcy at the core of these characters. Because Catherine suddenly possesses immense capital, she ceases to be a human being in their eyes.
Yep.
She becomes a hostile corporate entity that needs to be neutralized or managed.
Managed, yeah. Herbert, the solicitor, immediately attempts to establish this patronizing dominance, insisting he must take over all her financial affairs because, she's too simple to understand them.
And Gordon suddenly starts dropping these heavy hints about a medical practice he wants to buy for £3,000, just assuming Catherine will act as his personal bank.
So this sudden, massive wealth doesn't liberate Catherine at all. It just changes the nature of her imprisonment.
Precisely. She goes from being her father's indentured servant to being the prey of her sister's ravenous financial appetites.
The money is a massive burden. She is wandering around a town she's lived in for years, feeling completely alienated by her new reality. And this isolation leads her to a local spot called the Penelope Cafe, just seeking a sliver of normalcy, I think.
Right, and the Penelope Cafe scene introduces the ideological counterweight to the Riddle family's suffocating materialism.
Exactly. She's sitting there trying to enjoy the small comfort of a coffee with 2 lumps of sugar when a stranger sits at her table simply because the cafe is crowded.
And this is Bill Rapier.
Enter the anti-capitalist tramp.
Yes.
Bill is 28 years old, a former soldier, an unemployed warehouseman, and a self-described bastard. He drifts from place to place, working only when his stomach dictates it. He is everything the Riddle family despises.
The playwright sets up a brilliant dichotomy here. Catherine has been aggressively conditioned her entire life to view money as a heavy, solemn responsibility, a duty tied to social standing.
Right.
But Bill sees money purely as a utilitarian, temporary tool for acquiring present joy, like a sandwich or a warm bed. When she asks how he manages to survive, he cheerfully quotes scripture, saying, "God feeds his sparrows."
Their philosophical clash is so fascinating. Catherine, echoing the national rhetoric of the era, tells him everybody must work nowadays for the good of the country.
And Bill essentially laughs at that.
He does. He replies that while he enjoys watching other people getting and spending, he absolutely refuses to participate in the rat race himself.
The script handles political ideology very deftly through Bill here. He later brings up Karl Marx, but only to dismiss him.
Right, which is an interesting choice for a character who seems anti-capitalist.
It is. Bill argues that Marxism just replaces the exhausting pursuit of wealth with the equally exhausting pursuit of power. He points out that the bureaucratic shuffling of a socialist state doesn't make a person any happier than the capitalist grind.
So it's not really about politics for him.
Exactly. We have to view Bill not as a political revolutionary carrying a manifesto, but as an existential rebel.
Oh.
He is rejecting the very premise of striving, regardless of the economic system.
Okay, but wait, stop right there. Let's look at Bill objectively for a second.
Sure.
If I'm listening to this play and a charming 28-year-old drifter seamlessly strikes up a conversation with a wealthy, deeply isolated 46-year-old woman in a cafe, my alarm bells are ringing.
Oh, for sure.
Is he just a grifter? Is he weaponizing his poverty and his rugged charm to run a long con on a vulnerable target? Because she ends up offering him 20 pounds, which is a lot of money back then.
That suspicion is exactly what the playwright wants you to feel, because it lines you uncomfortably with Catherine's greedy family.
Ooh, that's a good point.
We are trained to look for the angle. But the text refutes this through Bill's radical, disarming honesty. He doesn't hide his poverty to seem respectable. He advertises it to filter out people who care about status.
That's true.
Crucially, when she offers him the 20 pounds, he genuinely refuses it. He takes exactly 1 pound, because a pound is all he needs for a bed and a meal that night.
Right, a grifter would have taken the 20 and probably asked for 50.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Bill uses his poverty not to extract wealth from Catherine, but to expose the absurdity of her relationship to it. He tells her she acts and dresses like an elderly aunt when she is only 46. He is holding up a mirror to the invisible prison she inhabits.
And he does completely disarm her. He even tells her he's going to go get a temporary job, specifically so he can earn enough to take her out for a proper dinner.
Which is incredibly charming.
It is. And when they finally do go to dinner, the dam breaks. She confesses the staggering size of her inheritance. She tells this vagabond she has 800,000 pounds.
And Bill's reaction in that moment confirms his true nature. A traditional con artist would immediately start calculating how to slowly siphon that money into their own accounts through, fake investments or sob stories.
Yeah, building a fake business plan on a napkin.
Right. But Bill's reaction is purely ideological and almost childish in its purity. He is ecstatic, and his instruction to her consists of 2 words: spend it.
Spend it like water, he tells her, and so begins the million-pound rebellion. They make a conscious decision to desecrate the Riddle family's most sacred cow.
The play frames the subsequent spending spree not as mindless consumerism, but as an act of profound existential rebellion.
It really is a rebellion.
Bill understands the psychology of Catherine's family perfectly. He explicitly tells her that Maud, Eleanor, and the husbands will be furious, not just because they're being denied the capital, but because they respect money as money.
Right, they worship the hoarding of it.
Exactly. By throwing it away on frivolities, Catherine is committing blasphemy against their religion.
And they go on an absolute rampage across London. I mean, they draw up to 200,000 pounds in a matter of days.
Unbelievable.
They buy a massive 24-horsepower car capable of doing 100 miles an hour. They rent an outrageously luxurious flat in a prime location from a man named Eric Farmer.
They hire an entire staff of West Indian servants to wait on them hand and foot. It's a complete inversion of her previous life of servitude.
But the auction scene is the most vivid illustration of this rebellion, isn't it?
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
They aren't just acquiring assets, they are intentionally disrupting the established social order.
Right.
The post-war art market was highly insular, controlled by dealers who basically gate-kept culture for the elite.
Right.
Bill and Catherine walk into a fine art auction, specifically to annoy these dealers by treating the entire process as a joke.
You hear the auctioneer calling out items, and Bill just bulldozes the room.
No.
There is a pair of Louis candelabra, which is, a symbol of the very European aristocracy the British middle class desperately wanted to emulate. The bidding starts at a polite 150 guineas, and Bill aggressively drives it up to 350 pounds just to win it. Then they bring out a serpentine-fronted Robert Adams sideboard.
Sick piece.
The room gets heated. The dealers are fighting for it. The price reaches 2,000 pounds, and Bill casually drops 2,500 to end the conversation.
Just drops the hammer.
He is tossing thousands of pounds around for the sheer thrill of mocking the reverence the room holds for these objects.
And alongside the financial rebellion, we witness Catherine's physical transformation, which is so important.
Right. She sheds the drab uniform of the spinster. She buys new dresses.
But the most symbolic moment is her visit to a proper eye doctor. For years, her miserly father had forced her to use a cheap, unqualified doctor who prescribed these thick, heavy glasses.
Because he wouldn't pay for a real specialist.
Exactly. And the new oculist informs her she doesn't even need glasses except for close reading. The patriarch had essentially blinded her to save a few pennies. So throwing those glasses into the bin is a heavily laden symbolic act. She is finally seeing the world clearly, unfiltered by her father's oppressive cheapness.
I kept thinking of a teenager taking a joyride in their parents' pristine, untouched sports car. Like the parents kept it in the garage under a tarp, worshiping the resale value, never actually driving it.
That's a great analogy.
The teenager steals the keys, not because they appreciate the fine German engineering, but because of the sheer thrill of breaking the rules and feeling the wind in their hair. It is entirely about the euphoria of liberation.
Yes.
But it begs a question for you. Does Catherine actually care about a Robert Adams sideboard or a period Picasso? Is she finding meaning in the objects or just enjoying the act of being unrestrained?
That's the million-pound question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Graf Cook anticipates this and addresses it brilliantly through the character of Eric Farmer, their landlord.
Right.
Eric observes Catherine moving through her luxurious new life and remarks to Bill, she's still an aunt at heart. The material items themselves haven't fundamentally altered her soul. She isn't suddenly a sophisticated art critic.
She doesn't actually care about the Picasso.
No. She is deeply happy, yes, but her happiness stems from the intoxicating defiance of her family and the joyful companionship of Bill. The things are just props in her performance of freedom.
But every action in a rigid society has an equal and opposite reaction. As Catherine liberates herself, the family's paranoia and rage reach an absolute boiling point.
Oh, they're furious.
The empire strikes back, and they decide to weaponize their middle-class respectability to crush her.
This segment of the drama is deeply unsettling because it highlights how societal norms and professional authority can be used as cudgels against those who step out of line.
Yeah.
The family, spearheaded by Herbert the solicitor, decides they must intervene. And Herbert first attempts the classic patronizing approach of the ruling class dealing with a nuisance. He gets Bill alone in his study and attempts to buy him off.
He offers him 25 pounds. It is so insulting. Bill is currently helping Catherine spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on a whim, and Herbert genuinely believes a 25-pound check will make this warehouseman scurry back to the gutter.
It highlights how dangerously limited Herbert's understanding of human motivation is. He literally cannot comprehend a desire that exists outside of petty transactional greed.
Exactly. When the pathetic bribe inevitably fails because Bill just laughs and walks out to attend another auction with Catherine, the family escalates their tactics.
They do.
They pool their resources and hire a private detective to dig into Bill's past, and they actually uncover a very dark, very real secret from Bill's life in France immediately following the war.
They discover that the drifter was once married.
Yeah.
He was married to a 17-year-old French heiress named Therese. And Therese died tragically when the car they were traveling in went off a sheer mountain cliff in the Pyrenees.
Now, let's analyze the psychological projection occurring within the Riddle family here. Because Maud, Eleanor, Gordon, and Herbert view Catherine purely as a financial asset to be harvested, they automatically assume Bill is operating on the exact same wavelength, just with lethal intent.
Exactly. They cannot conceive of a reality where a young, vibrant man genuinely enjoys the company of a 46-year-old spinster without a sinister, financially motivated endgame.
And the way Gordon handles this information is terrifying. Gordon is a medical doctor, and he delivers this absurd remote diagnosis.
It's medical malpractice, frankly.
It is. He has never examined Bill. He barely knows him. But based entirely on a private detective's summary of an old police report, Gordon diagnoses Bill with schizophrenia.
He confidently informs the family that Bill possesses a dual personality, a charming, harmless drifter on the surface, and a cold-blooded, calculating wife murderer underneath.
It is the weaponization of pseudoscience to enforce social control. Gordon abuses his medical authority to validate the family's greed and paranoia.
It's a common historical tactic, actually. Throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, medical diagnoses like hysteria or schizophrenia were frequently weaponized by families to institutionalize or disenfranchise women and outsiders who threatened the financial status quo.
So they mask their ravenous desire to control Catherine's fortune in the language of care, claiming they must protect her from a lunatic.
It functions exactly like a hostile corporate board trying to oust a rogue CEO. They frame their absolute naked greed as a noble effort to protect the company and the shareholders, but they don't give a damn about Catherine's happiness or autonomy.
Right. They only care about securing the dividends. Armed with this medical insight, they ambush her.
They corner Catherine in her luxurious new flat, entirely uninvited.
Yeah.
And this confrontation is the moment Catherine's transformation solidifies.
It's a great scene.
She doesn't cower. She listens to their vicious accusations, and she sees entirely through the facade of their concern.
She verbally eviscerates them. She stands her ground and says, "I suppose you hoped this man would find out that Bill had done something disgraceful, so you could get me back into your clutches again."
She strips away their pretense.
She does, telling them to their faces that they never cared for her, that they only want to hoard the money, and she vows that Bill will get every single penny of it before they see a dime. And then, with absolute authority, she kicks them out of her home.
It is an incredibly cathartic moment for the listener.
It is cathartic, but the playwright doesn't let us rest there, does he?
No, not at all. The seed of doubt has been successfully planted in the narrative. Murder for inheritance is the ultimate taboo. To clear the suffocating air, and for Bill to finally confront the physical ghost of his past, the duo decides they must flee London.
They travel to France, retracing Bill's steps, heading inevitably toward the scene of the alleged crime.
This geographical shift brings us to the climax in the Pyrenees. They arrive in the town of Pau, and who is waiting for them in the lobby of their hotel?
The entire Riddle family.
The whole lot of them.
The sisters, the husbands, even the teenage niece, they have obsessively pursued Catherine across the European continent to physically prevent her from going up this mountain with Bill.
The ambush in Pau is an act of sheer desperation. Herbert drops the role of concerned brother-in-law and threatens to call the French police and have Bill arrested on the spot if Catherine gets in the car.
They are attempting to hold her hostage through sheer intimidation and the threat of public scandal.
But Catherine's defiance holds strong.
Yep.
She refuses to be bullied. She gets into the car, and Bill drives her up a terrifyingly narrow, winding mountain road with a sheer 500-foot drop on one side until they reach the exact spot where Therese died.
The atmospheric tension in the audio play here is just incredible. The listener is still asking themselves, is there a dark side to Bill? Are we about to witness a murder?
The isolation of the cliffside, the absolute eerie stillness of the mountains, provides the perfect confessional space. Bill stops the car and unpacks the true story.
And it is profoundly heartbreaking, completely devoid of any malice.
He tells Catherine about meeting Therese. He was a lonely, traumatized soldier fresh out of the war. She was young, vibrant, and pure. They fell in love instantly.
Her wealthy father actually approved of him.
Right. For the first time in his life, Bill felt like he belonged to a family, to a place.
And then the senseless tragedy of it. They are on their honeymoon. They pull over on this exact mountain road. Therese is resting in the car. And the car itself is important. It's a vintage de Dion that her father had kept hidden in a haystack for years during the German occupation.
Right. Hidden from the Nazis.
Suddenly, Therese spots a rare long-tailed butterfly outside the window. She collects them, and she begs Bill to catch this specific one for her.
And Bill, wanting only to make her happy, stops the car, pulls a handbrake, grabs his net, and gets out. He scrambles over a grassy bank, eyes fixed on the butterfly.
The poetic irony of this moment is devastating. Bill is literally chasing a fleeting, fragile moment of beauty for the woman he loves. And in that split second of innocent distraction, his entire life is annihilated.
From over the bank, he hears a sudden scream. The handbrake of the de Dion, which had rusted and frayed while sitting idle and hidden in that damp haystack during the war snaps.
The car, which wasn't left in gear, begins to silently, unstoppably roll forward.
By the time Bill scrambles frantically back over the ridge, the car is plunging over the 500-foot drop. He hears the deafening crashes of metal against rock, and then absolute silence. He is left standing entirely alone on a mountain road.
It is a horrific, haunting image. But we have to examine Bill's actions following the accident. Why did he allow the world to believe he might be guilty?
Right.
He was eventually cleared by the French police, but there was a massive inquest. The international newspapers dragged his name through the mud, and the public consensus was that he killed her for her fortune. Why didn't he fight relentlessly to clear his name in the court of public opinion?
This is where we plunge into the depths of Bill's trauma and his crushing survivor's guilt. Legally, he was cleared because a picnicking family on the opposite side of the valley witnessed the accident, and mechanics confirmed the frayed brake wire.
So the police knew it was an accident.
Yes. But the damage to Bill's soul was permanent. The fact that ordinary, supposedly decent people, much like Catherine's family, could look at the catastrophic tragedy of a man losing his bride and immediately, cynically assume it was a calculated murder for financial gain. It broke his faith in humanity entirely.
He articulates this to Catherine perfectly. He says, "I said to myself that I'd never come to terms with the world again, that I'd hate everybody until I died."
He voluntarily renounced every single claim to Therese's vast fortune. He walked away from it entirely without taking a penny.
Wow.
We finally understand that his life as a tramp wasn't born out of laziness or a lack of ambition. It was a self-imposed penance.
It makes perfect sense now.
It was a complete structural rejection of a society that viewed human relationships strictly through the corrupting lens of financial gain. He refused to participate in a system that could look at his shattered heart and only see a balance sheet.
That revelation completely recontextualizes his character. And the family, who had rushed to the police station in Pau, hoping to have Bill arrested, are informed by the bemused French authorities that Bill is completely innocent and had legally renounced the money years ago.
The family is utterly, finally defeated by the truth. Herbert, ever the pragmatic solicitor, literally says he's going to cut his losses and go back to counting national health cards in London.
They just surrender.
They do.
Yeah.
Catherine and Bill are victorious. They are safe, they have each other, and they have all the money in the world.
In a traditional narrative, this is where the credits roll. But surviving the crisis leaves them with a new, completely unexpected existential dilemma.
Having vanquished the dragons, what do you do on Tuesday?
Exactly. And this brings us to the final philosophical act of the play, the Brass Farthing.
They return to London, back to their palatial, servant-filled flat. You would expect them to pop champagne, to revel in their victory over the family. But the thrill is entirely gone.
The adrenaline of the rebellion has faded into quiet mornings. Eric Farmer, their landlord, is sitting with them. And Bill and Catherine realize something terrifying.
The wealth has become an unbearable bore.
This is where the heavy Chestertonian conclusion of the play crystallizes into a tangible lesson. The meaning of the title comes into sharp focus.
A massive fortune, even £800,000, is worth barely a brass farthing, which is an archaic, nearly worthless coin, if it actively robs you of purpose and utility.
Bill realizes that simply spending money isn't an occupation, it's just a repetitive physical action. And Catherine, having spent 46 years working in a household, realizes that without a role to play, without a duty or a task, she feels completely untethered from reality.
She tells Bill she's good at counting towels and things. She inherently desires to manage a space, to work.
Therefore, they make a shocking, radical decision. They decide to give up the luxury life entirely. Now, crucially, they won't give the money back to the greedy family. That would validate their terrible behavior and fuel their materialism.
Right, you can't give it to them.
Instead, they simply walk away from it. They take a mere £1,000 to start over. They move to a flat, rather dull part of Kent, and they purchase a working-class public house, a pub.
They decide to spend their days pouring pints, sweeping floors, and wiping down bar counters.
It's wild.
By making this choice, they're rejecting two distinct poisons: the miserable, tyrannical hoarding practiced by Catherine's father, and the idle, meaningless consumerism they briefly enjoyed in London. They find their dignity and their peace in honest, daily, tangible labor.
This ending perfectly aligns with themes of distributism, an economic philosophy championed by writers like G.K. Chesterton and Hilaire Belloc.
Exactly. Distributism argues that true independence and human fulfillment come from widespread, small-scale ownership and meaningful work, rather than from massive concentrations of wealth in the hands of a few, or absolute control by the state.
Catherine and Bill now own their pub. They directly serve their local community, and they work with their own hands. They have found the middle path.
And the play rewards us with a deliciously awkward final scene.
Oh, I love this part.
The sisters, Maud and Eleanor, track them down and come to visit them in Kent. The sisters are freezing cold because they had to take public transport. Gordon apparently lost their chauffeur due to bad investments, and they walk into the pub to find the millionaire Catherine Riddle standing behind the bar.
Cheerfully serving a pint of beer to a local truck driver.
The sisters simply cannot comprehend the visual before them. Eleanor calls it disgusting.
They genuinely believe Catherine has squandered her life and is living in abject poverty as some form of karmic punishment.
They're so deeply trapped in their rigid class consciousness that they are completely blind to the fact that Catherine is glowing, vibrant, and genuinely happy for the first time in her life.
And then the playwright delivers the ultimate ironic twist. A letter arrives at the pub. It's from the solicitors of their former landlord, Eric Farmer. Eric has recently died. And because he so admired their spirit, he has left his entire massive fortune to Catherine and Bill.
It's a brilliant narrative stroke. It proves the philosophical point that once you stop caring about money, once you stop worshiping it as an idol, it completely loses its power over you.
And ironically, it seems to endlessly follow them. But Bill just laughs the letter off. The money no longer dictates their lives. It's just paper in a drawer. Wait, I have to step back and look at this ending critically for a second.
Sure.
Is it realistic? Could two people who have tasted absolute luxury actually just walk away from nearly £1 million to wipe down sticky bar counters in Kent? Or should we read this as a purely allegorical fairy tale about the corrupting nature of unearned wealth?
I think it operates on both levels, but it leans heavily into allegory. Croft Cook is using this extreme, slightly heightened scenario to make a foundational point about the human soul.
We're designed for purpose.
We are designed for purpose, for connection, and for labor that has tangible meaning. The vast wealth stripped Catherine and Bill of their humanity in different ways. It made her a target, and it made him an idle accessory.
Walking away from the capital was the only way to reclaim their humanity.
It's a moral fable designed for an increasingly consumerist modern age.
Stepping back from the plot, we really need to appreciate the incredible real-world craft behind the audio drama we just explored. This was broadcast in 1966 as a BBC Sunday play, a strand famous for bringing high-quality drama to a mass audience.
The pedigree of this production is outstanding, and it reflects a golden era of broadcasting. You have Rupert Croft Cook, a writer who lived a fascinating, unconventional life himself, providing the rich source material.
And the radio adaptation was handled by Giles Cooper.
Cooper is an absolute legend. He understood the specific demands of the audio medium perfectly, how to build tension through dialogue rather than exposition.
And the performances anchor the whole thing. Marjorie Westbury as Catherine is incredible. She manages the subtle transition from this beaten-down, whispering spinster to a defiant woman kicking her family out, and finally to a contented, grounded publican.
And Tim Seeley as Bill manages to balance that charming roguishness with the deep hidden well of trauma from France. Plus, Archie Campbell's direction keeps the pacing incredibly tight.
When you listen to it, how do you feel it compares to the media we consume today? What stands out in terms of construction?
Well, the pacing and the reliance on imagination are what strike me. Modern audiences experience media so differently than the original 1966 listeners. We are constantly bombarded with fast cuts, heavy musical scores, and visual spectacle.
But this play relies entirely on the dialogue to build its world. It's a masterclass in the theater of the mind.
Consider the climax on the mountain. When Bill is describing the car going off the cliff, the production doesn't use massive cinematic sound effects of a crash. They rely on Bill describing the horrifying silence that followed.
That silence, created in the listener's own mind, is infinitely more terrifying than any Foley work.
It demands active listening. It respects the intelligence of the audience. And this brings us back to the vital cultural preservation work being done by archivists today.
We must specifically acknowledge the team at Chesterton Radio for rescuing this overlooked treasure from obscurity.
Without their meticulous dedication to transferring and preserving these files, this nuance, this incredible piece of storytelling, would be entirely lost in the ether.
They ensure that modern listeners can still be moved by these mid-century themes, which, as we've seen with the discussions on class, wealth, and purpose, remain incredibly relevant today.
Absolutely. So let's briefly recap this remarkable journey. We followed Catherine and Bill from the oppressive, suffocating weight of maliciously hoarded wealth through a wild, chaotic rebellion against the hypocritical norms of society,
Past the devastating revelation of past trauma on a French mountainside.
all the way to the ultimate, ironic freedom of a simple, purposeful life pouring pints in Kent.
They ultimately discovered that the true value of a brass farthing isn't what it can buy in a shop, but what it represents. The absolute freedom to choose your own path and define your own worth, regardless of the balance in your bank account.
Exactly.
And that leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to ponder long after this broadcast ends. We've spent the hour analyzing Catherine's inheritance, but what is your own metaphorical 800,000 pounds?
That's a great question.
What societal expectations, what specific status symbols, or what heavy material burdens are you holding on to right now simply because society tells you they are valuable?
What might you need to finally spend or completely walk away from in order to strip away the noise and find your authentic, purposeful self?
It is a question that requires a great deal of courage to answer honestly.
It really does.
Well, if you enjoy programs like this where we dig into the layers of classic storytelling, please consider supporting Chesterton Radio. Your support directly helps preserve remarkable radio dramas, create new under-the-hood deep dives like this one, and keep the little station on Commercial Street on the air for listeners around the world.
We invite you to subscribe to the Chesterton Radio Substack. Share this deep dive with a friend who appreciates a good mystery.
Visit shop.chestertonradio.com for merchandise and become a paid supporter to help preserve classic radio for future generations. Don't forget to explore the wider Chesterton Radio world, including classic radio theater, detective dramas, Sunday plays, poetry and essays, morning prayer, the listener's chair, and all the original programming from the little station on Commercial Street.
There's always more history to uncover and more stories to discover.
Until next time, keep listening, keep wondering, and remember, the little station on Commercial Street is always on.